We've been finishing this series on change, talking through the book of Galatians, where Paul talks to us about how we've got to go through this process of being who we are, who we were, into the person that God created us to be, and just going through that change process and that transformation. And so today, you're going to get to hear from some people here in your own church family. So I'm going to go ahead and invite them up here. And these are some brave souls. You can give them a little clap as they come up here. They're going to share their stories. And you may know some of them. Some of them are very familiar faces, and then some might be new to you. So I will tell you a little bit about them, and then we'll get started. Maria is sitting here first. A lot of you heard her at our IF gathering share her story. Her husband Brandon and Liam, they all come here. Shannon and Jason and their family started coming a little bit ago and recently got baptized. And so she is here to share how change has really been happening pretty quick in her life. Gracie is next, and she is one of our beloved teenagers who comes every Wednesday night and invites everybody and is the great encourager. So she's got a lot to share. If you've ever gotten coffee or a drink at the coffee bar, you know Liz and her husband Kirk. They are there pretty much every Sunday. She serves in that way. She has served as a leader in our women's Bible study. Then Mason is... He's just on fire. I'm really excited for y'all to hear from him. He got baptized recently. He's going to tell you about all that. But he has been filling our church up with college students to the point that we had to start a college ministry, and he's filling that up. And so he's just really excited about it. And then Mike, you probably know Mike and Tara Calzaretta up here. Their family kind of comes in and brings the party. And so if you don't know Mike yet, you're going to love him. But thank y'all for being up here. It takes some courage, and everybody up here has a story to tell, but these are the lucky ones, or unlucky ones, who got asked today. So let's jump in, and what I want to hear, let me give you some microphones. What I want to hear is how God has used maybe a significant change in your life to transform you. So I know that God often uses change to change us. Maybe it's a move or a loss or just a life change. But what was that change, and how did it impact you? And however y'all want to answer is fine.
I think that the biggest change for me was when I met my best friend, Savannah. I grew up Christian and in church, but I never really believed it. I kind of came because I was told to. And then when I met my best friend, Savannah, she invited me to the bridge, and I came a couple times, and by the third time when Jesse was talking about, how forgiving God could be, and at that point I just started crying, and I talked to him about wanting to get baptized and moving forward with my faith.
So I grew up in the church also, but in 2020, everybody's fabulous year. I know everybody loved it. Best of times, worst of times. My husband, we discovered in February, had to have open heart surgery, so I was dealing with that. We had that in July. We had 4 high school, 2 seniors, so we had the loss of their soccer and lacrosse seasons, dealing with that, but also got time with them. Open heart surgery comes along. Then my father-in-law has open heart surgery. Then 3 weeks later, everybody gets COVID, and we don't know if we're going to get sick. We don't know. Everybody ended up fine. Then the boys go off to college. We have job changes. And it got to the point with my mental health, because I was the one that takes everything in, and I'm the one that tells everybody it's going to be okay. I didn't have anybody to release that to. So I got to the point I couldn't even leave my house. But because of COVID, nobody really knew. So just dealing with all that. So that did bring about some change with God and how I trusted him.
So I grew up, and I went to church when I was a kid, and then I was away on the weekends, so I didn't have the chance to go to church. And then there was this one time, I'm not sure what brought me to it, but then I just prayed, and God answered my prayer, and I was just wow, And so ever since then, I just started pursuing him more and more, and I got closer and closer. And it's been a little journey, and yeah.
So my husband and I moved here about 1.5 years ago from Oregon. And in Oregon, we were kind of in a fight or flight mode for a couple years after COVID. And so after we were done fighting, we decided to leave Oregon, and we ended up here in Tennessee, the most random town of all time, but my cousin is here, and so she's like, you're gonna love it, you should come here. So we moved here. My husband and I both grew up Christians, but we never really committed, I think. So when we moved here, God opened just every door possible for us to get here in the first place, and then we decided to try and find a church, went to one other church, and then ended up here, and God has moved in insane ways for us since then. So that's how we ended up here, and we just recently got baptized a few weeks ago, and that's pretty much how God's been working in our life. So
I think for me, similar story of moving. So we've moved quite a bit as a family, and probably back in, I think it was November of 2021, we moved here to Clarksville from Washington State, where we lived for close to 3 years. Our family had kind of gotten away from church, just the ebbs and flows of life, COVID, lots going on. I work for this tiny little company that delivers lots of smiles, Amazon. But it was obviously a wild time during COVID for us. And, we moved here, we changed schools, we changed friends, lots happening with that. And we just kind of, like I said, gotten away from, church and the Lord. And the girls, we have 4 daughters. You've probably seen lots of their pictures up here. And I think in that, the girls had kind of separated as well from, just being a part of the church family. And similar, we went to try another church, but stopped here on the way, and that was all it took. We were instantly drawn here, and I think, the girls were very involved. But for us, it was just a time where God kind of brought us to being here, and it was an important part to watch the girls spiritually grow.
My story is a little tiny bit different, but that's okay. So I got pregnant when I was 18 with my daughter, and I kind of felt at that time, because I had a pretty abusive relationship with my parents and the father of my daughter, and I kind of felt at that point in my life that God had abandoned me, and so I abandoned God and decided that I didn't need him in my life. I was a teenage mom with no support. I ended up turning to alcohol and opioids, became addicted to both of them. I spent the next 4 or 5 years lost in the darkness of addiction, and I felt like I had nobody, and nobody loved me because God had abandoned me, and he was supposed to be the one person that loved me no matter what, and I just felt like at that point that I wasn't worthy of even his love anymore. And it wasn't until I had multiple failed intentional overdoses and ended up in rehab for my daughter that I cried back out to God and asked him what he wanted me to do with my life, because I felt like I didn't have a purpose at that point in time. And through him, I ended up in AA and rehab a couple of times. I ended up becoming sober from both the alcohol and the opioids. It'll actually be 12 years and 2 weeks since I've used. I wanted to get back into the church. I had grown up in the church, but like I said, my parents were pretty lukewarm Christians. And we went to a church, my husband and I, and just didn't see eye to eye with how the church was. It seemed like there was a lot of internal strife, and we just felt like I didn't, turn my life over to God to end up back being pulled into gossip and things like that. And so a good friend of ours who actually used to go to the same church as us was like, hey, I know you live out there. Have you looked at the bridge? Have you tried it? We've heard great things about Pastor Chad. And so here we are.
That's awesome. Thank you. All of those stories, they're so different, and yet I find myself resonating with all of them, because it's, as much as I love y'all, it's not about y'all, right? It's about what God is doing in you and in your lives, and he's shining through you. So what I would love to hear is, what do you know about God now that maybe you didn't before? or maybe I don't know about him because I didn't have the same experience. What did you learn about God through all of that?
I'll go first on this one. Because I know my husband and I, like I said, we were, always Christians and always knew God. But I think the thing that I'm learning the most is he never stops pursuing us. That's something that is like, I knew that he was always there, but you just have to kind of let him love you the way that he can love you. Because you can think, oh, I'm a good person and I do good things and I'm going to get into heaven. I'll be fine because I've accepted Jesus into my heart. But if you really open up your heart to him, then he will move in you in ways that you never thought possible. So I think that was, for me, the biggest thing is letting him in fully and fully trusting and fully committing that he's going to take care of you. I mean, we spent every penny we had to freaking move from Oregon to Tennessee. And here we are still living and thriving. So we're happier than we've ever been because we've fully committed and fully let Jesus in to help guide us through this journey.
I would say that I have found that God is very forgiving. It used to be very hard for me to either forgive myself or to forgive others, if I'm being honest. And I found that God loves unconditionally, and that was really special for me.
I discovered I'm a little bit of a control freak, as my husband when we're driving, to truly turn things over to God. You can say you turn it over, but to truly do that takes a lot of trust. And so through those years, and this year we've had some issues too, I've truly turned it over to God, knowing that everything is in his time and according to his will, and just trusting in that, believing in that, that makes a huge, huge difference in life.
So I've also learned how forgiving God is. It has helped me to forgive others because, if he can forgive me for all the bad stuff I've probably done, and then I could forgive others. And also, I've learned how loving he is, and it's helped me love others and care for others and just have that same passion for others as, he does all of us. So that's,
Yeah, I think, for me, similar about loving others. One of the things that really is kind of struck and stuck with me is just how God will continue to push you to push others. And I think that was one of the biggest eye-opening things for me was, I used to not talk about God at work. I didn't talk about, spiritual things at work and things that were important to me because it was always, hey, professionally, personally, you kind of kept those things separate. But just over the course of the last year, I've had the opportunity to kind of bring 3 people at work to know Jesus and actually see 2 of those 3 get baptized. And one was from coming here on Easter Sunday, and that was kind of that defining moment for them. So I think, again, it's just continue to speak outwards, be proud of the things that you believe in, and I think, God continues to push us and bring people into our lives at certain points, just because you don't know what they're going through in theirs, and sometimes it's just to be a shoulder to lean on and just an invite that could change somebody's life forever.
Where the world will let you down, God never will. And it's really reassuring. When I was looking over the questions, actually, I had a really oh, okay moment because I opened my Bible and it came to Romans 5:8 about how though while we were sinners, Christ still died for us. And that's a really strong reminder that it's no matter these terrible things we've done in our life, no matter what kind of sin we may still be living in, that Christ still died for us. It's still forgiven and washed away, and there's literally nothing that can take his love away from you. And even though, like I said, the world might let you down, God's always going to be there for you.
It's a good promise to rest in. Absolutely. As we get closer to him, I think that he reveals what we need to work on too. The guys kind of answered this. You might have more to say, but what challenges have you had to struggle through as far as with your own self? What's the changes that you've had to make as you're getting closer to him? Maria, you want to answer?
Okay. I'm just gonna say I've had to work on a lot, and a lot has changed. A lot has changed. The people I surround myself with and the situations and places I catch myself at, that's changed, and everybody around me has kind of said that God has had a big impact on my life. So.
Mason's in college right now, remember, and so he has done kind of a 180, and he's brought his friends along with that. So I don't know what all has changed, but I know everything has changed, right? Yeah, Mike?
I think one for me is learning how to be a better communicator. It's one of those things that you think you do really well until you kind of self-reflect. And I think, one of the kind of corny, but I'm reading this Fierce Marriage book. Tara's got some feedback, I'm sure, for me. But one of the things that that I've really been reflecting on is just how Jesus wants us to communicate to others, speak to others, just as he spoke to his people, right? And for me, being in a leadership role at work, sometimes you don't get that chance to show emotion or really connect to who you are. And I've really had to kind of self-reflect a lot on that, and how am I communicating? What example am I setting for others? And having four daughters, ages 6 to 15, you got to really be careful of the things that you say, and watch that you don't kind of lead those individuals the wrong way as they're growing in their life. So I think it's really about just how you continue to communicate and be more like Jesus in that space.
I've learned that prayer is important. You can't just pray when you want things. You can't just be selfish with your prayer. I also know that God really, really pulled me away from the people that were toxic and hurting me, kind of like you were saying, where it's you have to be really wary of the company you keep, because iron sharpens iron. And that was a huge change for me, because these were my friends, the people that I spent my whole life with, doing these things with that I thought would bring me, peace and acceptance. And so learning to let go of things. I know you mentioned a minute ago about control, letting God be in control of everything rather than trying to control things myself.
So when we moved here, I left my cosmetology career in Oregon, and if you've ever been to a salon, the gossip is constant. And I worked in a beauty school. It was full of young girls, and the gossip and the drama was an everyday thing. And I just lived in it, and I just always thought to myself, oh, I'm a positive person. I'm going to try and, pull these girls from this drama. And then so I thought I was doing great things. I was just man, I'm an amazing person, right? And then I left my cosmetology career. My licenses didn't transfer. It's a messy situation. So now I'm here doing something else. But I was still kind of in that gossipy mindset. I was still wanted to hear everyone's problems and then trying to fix it. That's not my job. So that was something that I had to kind of let go of, was stop trying to be the fixer. And also, even though I was trying to be the fixer, I was still involved. And I would still see really negative things in people. And I would still be oh my gosh, that person is this and that person's that. And so that's something that I'm really working on, is just trying to, not be so judgy, because that's human nature. Everybody's judgmental, right? But I'm trying really hard, and God is helping me just kind of say, okay, this person has walked this path, and that person has walked that path, and that is their own fight with Jesus. So I'm just really working on, trying to let go and let God, as corny as that sounds.
So about a year ago, I was diagnosed with OCD, and that was really hard for me because I felt like I always had to be in control. And it was hard for me to, even go to my parents about certain things. So, sorry. I'm sorry. But, it was, relieving being able to have, or being able to go to God. And like you were saying, with prayer and stuff. So, yeah.
And I think it probably goes with you, with community. Having community surrounding you, people that have like values that you can talk to, that can pray for you, that you can pray with them, and realizing you're not the only one going through things. Other people are going through things, but people don't want to share that. And so when you let your guard down a little bit, you realize everybody else has something. And so when you have that community that you can share things with and encourage each other, that makes a huge difference. And that's, the past couple of years, has been huge.
And you found that in women's group, and Gracie's found that in our teen ministry. But it is when we hear other people are dealing with the same stuff, and when we see people further along that, well, if God got them through it, then he's going to get me through this. Yeah, so it takes bravery to share our stories, whether it was 12 years ago or last year, or yesterday. But he does. He's working in all of that. And a lot of you mentioned community in different forms, but what else have you turned to? Is there any sort of like practice or scripture that you've turned to when you're in times of change, or that God's just been bringing up for you a lot in this last year?
I would say just reading your Bible. That is something that has like really helped me. Like when I feel like I can't ask a question, which I think I've gotten a lot better with asking questions. But when I feel like I can't like find an answer, or I feel like I didn't get an answer, just like reading my Bible, it's like an answer key. So just like being able to like find the answers there.
I don't know if anybody's dealt with anxiety before, but your body feels like it is just buzzing. And so when I went to talk to somebody, the first thing they told me was be still. And that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, just be still. And then over the course of women's Bible studies and different things, that common occurrence, the be still from God. Be still, know that I am God. And so just those moments of when something, it's just take that time to be still. Focus in on God, knowing that he is there, that he will be there for you. Be purposeful in your prayers. I'm very deliberate in my prayers now, knowing everything will happen in his time, not my time. It is his time.
So I would say just praying continuously, praying when you wake up, and just putting God first all the time. And my mind just kind of went blank on me. So
How would you encourage other college students, though? What would you tell them?
I do tell them to put God first and to just always seek him, try and I lost it again. Seek his will, do what he wants you to do, and kind of not what you want to do. See what would glorify him, and kind of not yourself.
Yeah, you've really changed your priorities around peace first. Yeah. Mike, what would you encourage people who are leading their families, leading in their business? What would you say to them?
I think you switched the question up on me a little bit, but that's okay.
or what you have turned to. What's gotten
for
you
me,
to this place?
Yeah, for me, I have a hard time with the being still part. I have terrible ADHD, and like just taking the time and like being very dedicated and committed. Right? If you think about it, like commitment, not compliance, and you're like truly committed to driving yourself to be a better person in God, and for others. I have a long ride in every morning to go to Nashville, to work out of the office there. Praise and worship songs constantly on the radio gets my mind straight in the morning. It's really good to decompress before I get home. For our family, Trusting God is one of our favorite songs. And, you just have to do it. No matter what you're going through, no matter what it is, trusting God that he's going to find his way and help you through whatever it is.
To kind of piggyback off of that, my playlist has changed dramatically. When we were back in Oregon, I was like a R&B hip-hop girl, and I love, Beyonce and Rihanna and all that secular stuff that makes you feel like you're on cloud nine. But I've changed my my music to all worship music, pretty much that and country, because Tennessee. I've really embraced country, and so has my husband, which is like a huge step for him because he didn't listen to country at all. Just surrounding yourself with words that are for God will change your mindset and your overall physical feeling, because secular music has a way of, it's superficial feel good. It's not real. And so, my playlist is called Worship My Way, and there's tons of good stuff on there. I've had a lot of fun trying to find worship music that are good for my kids too, because they don't always want to listen to the same stuff I do. So Forrest Frank, for all you moms and dads with younger kids, you like him? See? I know what I'm doing. So worship music is huge for me. It's changed my life dramatically. I try to play it as much at home, in the car, whether my kids like it or not. And then also I have a devotional. I never did a devotional before, and it's really helped me kind of dissect what God wants for me and for my family. And so I have a devotional that I'm smack dab in the middle of right now, and it's been a lot of fun.
Maria, give us a little encouragement. People who are facing change, people who are trying to trust God, what would you tell them?
God hasn't forgotten you.
Yeah, that's it. Thank y'all for sharing your stories. Anybody want to say anything else? Gracie's got something.
One more thing I just wanted to say. Another big thing for me was finding community and like finding other people like my age especially. So I used to go to like small groups and things like that. Well, I kind of went to them. I was told to go to them, and then I'd go hide in the bathroom until it was time to leave. But when I was brought to Elate, which is the teen ministry, that is when I really found God. And I did it for myself, not because I was told to. And it was really nice. And I think that was like the biggest change for me, was finding other people my age that cared about me. So
that's awesome. Oh, Mason's got something else too.
You got it?
Yeah.
Don't let it slip
Great.
out.
It just might have.
Okay.
Okay, I would say, I think it did. I think it might have. I know, it just, talk for a second.
Okay. I'm just going to wrap this up with what I can go with. Community is big, important. Sharing with people. Here we go.
Okay. Okay, so.
Just kidding.
Everybody struggles with their own situation and own things that you struggle with, and just pray about it and seek God for it and talk to Him about it, and He will help you get through it. That was it.
Will y'all give them a round of applause? Thank you.